And we're live. Hello, good people, good people, good people. I'm Julian Ben. I'm the creative director for Empty Wonderland Collective. And welcome again to another edition of the Fading Embers podcast, coming to you live out of Baltimore, Maryland. And I got my good friend, Timothy Lychek, uh, here he's coming out of Tacoma, Washington. And Tim, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so basically, I'm an immigrant. I immigrated to the United States in 1992 when I was 8 years old. Grew up in the area, PK, pastor's kid, um, all the stuff that comes with it, both good and the bad. And I have a lot of redemption in my life. And yeah, just gives you about a little bit of a background and an idea for my worldview. Both coming from a country that's post communist with a lot of persecution, and then growing up in the United States where there's quote unquote religious freedom to a point. And so a lot of that stuff informs the way I look at things.
Word. And anybody familiar with the podcast knows that we're our crew for the most part, we're a Christian group, and we like art, we like storytelling, we believe in telling the truth, and believe in amening truth regardless of who it's coming from, but still pointing to the ultimate truth, which is Jesus. And then, but we're also people, we're regular people, and we like to talk. We like to talk about stuff. We like to talk about good music. We like to talk about good films and stuff like that. We like to talk about current events, everything that's going on. And so we're just a group of friends that get together and talk about the stuff that we like to talk about. Today, Tim and I are going to actually go through a worship album by the Porter's Gate Worship Project called Work Songs. And it's Work Songs Volume 1, as a matter of fact. The Porter's Gate Worship Project is based out of Trinity Presbyterian in Charlottesville, Virginia. And basically, they wanted to put together, they realized that, like, in America, Christianity is probably, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Christianity is probably more spliced and diced in the first world Western context, probably than is anywhere else. That there's really an identity crisis for what Christianity looks like in a comfortable setting, such as like the United States or the UK or something like that. And Porter's Gate, even though they're based out of a sort of Presbyterian tradition, the founders, that's the tradition he's coming from. He was realizing that, God's body is actually diverse and that people come from a wide range of backgrounds. And that even though we might be coming from different denominations and different sort of practicing traditions of the Christian faith, that there is unity in it, and that we rarely get a chance, because of our divisions, we rarely get a chance to sort of come together and really sort of enjoy the things that we have in common, and then also take the things that are different about it and to really sort of nurture and minister to each other. So he wanted to get together, assemble a crew of widely different artists like Latifa Alatas, who also goes by the stage name Moda Spirit. She's also the lead vocalist for Solami and Paige CXVI. Get Josh Garrels, who was living up in Portland, Oregon, and I think now he's moved out to Indiana as of late last year. You've got Sandra McCracken, Audrey Assad, Liz Weiss, Urban Doxology, just a wide variety of people coming from different denominations and different sort of worship styles coming together to see if they could make an album together, worshiping together and teaching, and then do that project teaching the whole body of Christ that they can reach anyone who's willing to listen. This is what it sounds like when God's body gets together, or at least a taste of it. That's sort of what they're about. And my friend Tim is coming from as he let us know a few minutes ago, he comes from a completely different perspective than I come from. I was born in Virginia, raised in the deep South of the United States. I'm now living like right on the border of the South to the north here in Baltimore, Maryland, stuff like that. Black, so I have a lot of Black church sort of stuff in the background. I'm Pentecostal by background, but I've also been in full gospel and Baptist circles as well. So my perspective is obviously different, coming from a place that doesn't have historically a lot of Christian persecution, although I come from a people group that's had oppression and stuff like that and still experiences systemic oppression, and Christianity is plays the villain in some of that because of the practice in Christianity of the oppressors a lot of time in those situations. So our perspectives are, I don't know that our perspectives could be any different. Like they're definitely very coming from different corners of the world, different experiences, and yet we're coming together as family and brothers and sisters in Christ, brothers in Christ, to really sort of look at this thing and to give our spin. So I really wanted to turn over half the album, really perspective over you, Tim, and just really get your thoughts on it, because I'm really just interested in hearing that. Like starting, like if you don't mind, we can start from track one. Like you take 1 through 7 and just tell me how you feel about that. Like and name the tracks off as well for our listeners, since they can't see the list that we can see.
Well, for me, like this body of work can't really separate it track by track. So one of the things in the Ukrainian Baptist churches, from my background, is what we do is sing from a hymnal. And so the way this album spoke to me was really, as this group, the collective singing from a hymnal. And so it, like, I'm in tears from a lot of these songs, just because one, it reminds me of the church back in Ukraine, people who live this stuff out, and then for them, for my ancestors and my dad, my grandpa who was persecuted, these are the kind of songs that would have given them hope. So despite Julian and myself having these different worldviews, I think we come together under the fact that we do have oppression in our background, and whether it's coming from because of Christianity or because of his ethnicity and race. And so these are the kind of songs that people who have been oppressed, who know what it's like to, just like you have the police or the secret police break into your church or your house and break it apart, and the gathering, and take your dad away or your pastor away because it's illegal. Songs like "Establish the Work of Our Hands," "Christ has no body now but yours." These like more minor key, slower songs is what definitely catches hits my heartstrings. My personal favorite song is "Your Labor Is Not in Vain." One, because I did grow up in the United States, and so like looking back at my history, like my dad was in jail for preaching Christ. My grandpa spent years in the gulag for being a Christian. Like I can't say my life kind of lives up to that legacy, but this song gives me hope, because like the things I do as a Christian, my life, it's still not in vain. Just because I don't go to jail or am persecuted for Christ as they were, the little things that I do, the steps of faith, telling my coworkers about Jesus, or living the life that I'm called to be, renouncing the things of this world for the things of God, it's still honored. And so, it's like being a son of God. I got to know that my labor here, how little or how much, is not going to be in vain. It's going to be, honored by Jesus.
Amen.
But yeah, just overall, I mean, these are the types of songs that my people are used to singing. Very God-focused, God-centered, and there's a big element of sadness or hope, but not yet, already but not yet type of theme here. And so that's kind of that's my take on it. I mean, I really enjoyed this piece of work because, it's produced and made by millennials, but it really touches on those heartstrings and that feeling of, this world is messed up, but there's hope. You know, everything we do, God's gonna honor. God's gonna remember. And so that's my take.
And I would definitely say that many of the songs in here, some of them are actually old hymns. And some of them are Catholic hymns as well. So it's interesting just seeing people come together from the different sort of facets of Christianity sort of coming into this, and then also coming from different cultural backgrounds as well. So it's really interesting. I think the things that really resonated with me the most, if I had to point it out, like Little Things with Great Love in the beginning, just because it was a really good sort of beginning piece. Establish the work of our hands. That was also one that that resonated really deeply with me. Let's see, track number. Which one is it? Wooden Nails, that had Audrey Assad and Josh Garrell together with that. That I don't know. There's something that's haunting about it, but it really sort of draws me out of myself. I get the sense that I don't know. I sort of get transported back into the Gospels, and I get transported into the Passion, you know, with Jesus's crucifixion and his suffering. I sort of get transported, you know, into the Scriptures in that way, and I like the fact that they picked a song and they performed it in such a way, because Josh Garrels is really good for doing something that has kind of a haunting, stick to you kind of feel. It really sort of I didn't feel like a modern day Christian. I didn't feel like I was in my sort of like my modern moment, if that makes sense. I feel like I was being connected to something that was much older, a hope that's actually been enduring through tragedy and time and things of that nature. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think worship that doesn't pull you out of yourself, songs that you can't sing along with or you don't get pulled out of yourself. I think that maybe that there's something missing from the worship perspective, because our worship is really supposed to be a response to stuff that God has already said to us. It's supposed to be a sort of extolling his character and his goodness and his majesty, and then also realizing that he's present in suffering, as you kind of alluded to previously. So I feel like Porter's Gate, especially when you're coming from all these different denominations, you're coming from Baptist, you're coming from Catholic, you're coming from Presbyterian, you're coming from some more charismatic backgrounds and stuff like that that are mixed in to what made this album sonically, and then also even lyrically, the different hymnals that they're pulling from that. It pulled me out of myself, and I feel like that's what good worship music is supposed to do: pull you out of yourself so that you can look at the maker, you can look at your creator. So that's sort of where I was with it on that.
I completely agree with you. The Sunday school lesson I was teaching this morning was about the woman at the well, and you know, Jesus defined worship for us. It's in spirit and truth. It's inside you speaking the words of truth. And you know, listening to Audrey kill the vocals on that song, it was just, you know, an extra little cherry on top about the whole message. I mean, it's in the title. It's Jesus lifted up and crucified for us. So that way, you know, so that way we live on as his children, honoring him. I mean, even the track list, the songs tell a story. You start out with the first couple tracks. You know, you have Mercy on Me, and then you go into Wooden Nails, and then you go into establishing the work of our hands. So you follow this narrative of, here's what Christ made me. Now I'm going to do work for his glory and for his honor. And you know, like, establish the work of your hands, and Christ has no body but yours. Yeah. You go into day by day, And then you go into the, further, like God the Maker in the fields of the Lord. It's kind of like you're redeemed, and now you work. Thus the work songs title. You work not because you have to or it's your duty, but because you want to, because you, with your work, you know that you're honoring God. It's part of your worship. It's not
Yes.
part of something you forced to do, or you won't get into heaven. It's part of your worship to God because you have that gratitude. You
Exactly. You're
realize.
doing something that you love with someone you love.
Mm-hmm.
Which I hope for Americans that should resonate because we're all about trying to do careers and live our lives doing things that we enjoy versus doing the grueling work kind of thing like that. So that's what worship is supposed to be. You're doing what you love with the one you love the most, which is supposed to be Jesus. Um, Obviously,
Amen.
I think Audrey's contribution to this, I think she really enjoyed it, and I think it meant a lot to her because some of the contributions that she put on the Porter's Gate worship album here, she also put on her most recently released album that she just released, I think last month, called Evergreen. So the Evergreens, or it might have been this month, early this month, but so the stuff that she put on Evergreen, some of that stuff was on Porter's Gate. It's just a little more refined, a little less a cappella kind of thing like that. So I could it's clear that the songs that she put forth on this were actually songs that she's practicing on the inside to get healing and to get rest and stuff like that. So it's good to see people sort of cross pollinate. You're getting to see their own sort of real lives and real perspectives sort of sung out, on this work. And you mentioned that earlier. You get to see people who are actually doing the work help to draw us into a state of awe of the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a particular favorite vocalist on here, or someone who you really thought um, embodied the spirit of it? Because I mean, everyone sang to different degrees. Not everyone sang everything. Some people did background vocals, stuff like that, harmony, stuff like that.
Well, my standout favorite is definitely Audrey on this album. I liked some of the songs by Josh. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I really like Christ Has No Body Now But Yours
Oh
by
yes.
Mr. Garrels.
Mm-hmm.
I have a love-hate relationship with that song just because I think he could have done a lot more with the lyrics. I thought, I mean, he had like it's like a classic hymn style.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off beautifully, and you have the build up and the choir or whoever he did that. It sounds amazing, but it's just it's just one line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a powerful line, but it kind of falls short of what it means to be a hymn.
Mm.
I mean, he could have done a lot more with the storytelling there, and I know songs writing is hard. I tried it before, but I thought the melody and the music and all the production was great sounding, but it's just like I wish there were more words to it.
What do you think of the the overall sonic production value of the album as a whole? Given that this is a live album, given that a lot of it's a cappella, and then even though there was a small chamber orchestra in bits for it, um, what do you think of it sonically? Like, was it sonically pleasing? Was it well done? Was it well produced?
Well, you could tell that you know it's a live album. There's definitely that feeling of there's not, the sounds aren't perfect, and it's not the greatest piece of production, I would say.
Hmm.
But for me, like when you get into the songs, you kind of lose that. You're not focused on that. You're just hearing people who are singing their heart out towards their savior, and you want to join in. And so, like, it's not the best sounding album for me, as far as just sound quality goes. It felt like the microphones could have been better, um, or the recording equipment could have been better, from my point of view. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know, just to make
Hmm.
it sound like an old gospel choir singing in a church somewhere.
Hmm.
But I think that could be overlooked just because of the content of the whole story behind it and the story they're trying to tell.
So the quality of the finished work sort of outshines the nuances and all the detail that it would take to make like a well polished studio production of some kind. Like the overall experience outshone that, like the overall experience in drawing you into a state of worship was of greater value than it being like a polished studio album kind of thing. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the way I took it. I mean, it's not something that I was expecting to be top notch quality. You know, I mean, the whole thing for me was just the lyrics and hearing the emotion and the voices and feeling like, wow, these people are legit. I want to sing along to this because, you know, I'm feeling something.
amen. Yeah, I think Josh and Latifah, Liz, I felt like Liz did more backup vocals and more harmony than anything. Urban Doxology did their thing. I enjoyed that. I don't know. I enjoyed everybody. Like it was for me. This was almost like for anyone who's familiar with hip hop, because I do listen to a lot of hip hop. Hip hop in the '90s used to have this. They don't do it as often now, but they used to have this thing in the early 2000s. Used to have this thing that was called a posse cut, where basically you'd have uh, either you and everyone in your rap group together. Each has like a 16 bar verse or an 8 bar verse, just depending on how it's going. There's no hook. Everyone's just rapping their tail off. Or it's just you and all your rapper friends, even if whether they're in your crew or not, and just all sort of doing. So for me, I'm so familiar with like most of the people who are on here, their work and stuff like that. So for me, this was like a posse cut. Like, when am I ever going to get Josh Garrels and Latifah Alatas and Audrey Assad and Liz Vice and Urban Doxology? Like, when am I going to ever get all of those people together? Like David Gunga. Like, when am I going to ever get all those people in one room working on something? When am I going to get Sandra McCracken providing commentary on stuff like that? Like, when am I going to get all these people who a lot of them are really kind of like indie Christian artists and so they're not all of them are sort of like on the main stage. CCM, they're in some respects lesser known, but like we can get that quality, this caliber of professional musicians and very soulful, living their lives out, gospel people come together to do this one thing. It just doesn't happen very often anymore. So I like a posse cut. I like dream collaboration. So that I hate to say it, that was enough to make me click yes, and to click yes a few times so I could share it with my friends before I even heard it. It was enough for me to go ahead and get a couple copies. I said, this is going to be special, and this is going to be able to encourage the saints. Like I know it because I know the quality of work of the people who were involved. It's like, this is going to encourage the saints, and it did. It encouraged me, and anybody who watches our podcast familiar with Trevor Stevens, who's a regular on our show. He's part of the collective. Like he couldn't make it tonight for this episode, but even he's been brought to tears by this and really enjoyed it as well. It's really ministered to his soul, so it's good. So yeah, like, do you have anything else really to sort of add? Because I know we didn't have a lot of bullets today for this particular one. So like I felt like the album kind of spoke for itself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't really judge each song and say, can't really break any song down, I feel, just because, I mean, a lot of these, like you said, are old hymns, and all these songs are put together and tell a wonderful story about what it means to be a Christian, and not just a pew Christian, but actually a child of God, walking, day by day, bearing the image of God. And I don't know how they created the album, what the story is behind it, but if you say it's like a posse cut, I think it's a lot more than that, just because each song is so, I think they really chosen well for this volume. It's not just a bunch of songs put together, but I feel like they are meant to encourage and tell a wonderful story.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at their at the sort of blurb that the Portisgate Worship put up on their site about this, and they said when an event or a series of events acquires a moniker, the moniker of a movement, it's often not because of the flash of the event itself, but because of the ripple effect. More often, the movement is small but profound, perhaps even imperceptible at first until its impact begins. Such is the impact of the Porter's Gate, a sacred arts collective created with to identify with and fulfill the most impactful role of the Christian church, to be its porter, one who goes beyond the church doors for guests to welcome. Porter's Gate seeks to build an ecumenical community that invites conversation and collaboration in an exploration of faith, to start a movement, a soundtrack for faithful, welcoming presence for a faithful, welcoming presence in our broken world. The church in North America is having an identity crisis. Um, it's having an identity crisis. There are all kinds of metaphors for fortress mentality, closed Christian communities segregating from culture. Others are talking about assimilation, Christians who don't want to be called Christians because of the perceived stigma in our culture. It's time to be an agent of change, to change the way the church engages the community, to reimagine a movement of redeeming love that seeks to welcome those outside the doors of all particular practices, liturgies, and beliefs. The thing that marks us the most is our welcome, our hospitality. By becoming the porter at the gate, the church identifying itself by its welcome hospitality, it is a renunciation of power. He said, let's see, we give up the power to control the narrative and embrace the community and what it brings to the church. Unity and understanding giving up the power to control. And like, how often do you hear that among church leadership and talking about how rare it was? So they wanted to break down the walls of the various denominations and to be, because Jesus said that you'll be known by how you love each other, which I think that's really important. And I think that within the church, we say that we love each other, but we obviously don't practice it, and the outside world sees it. So this was an exercise, and people coming from wildly different traditions, holding the same core tenets, but wildly different practices of it, coming together. And a lot of these people actually have relationships with each other. They're actually like friends and love each other and stuff like that. And so to see the body from all its different corners, all the different corners that this project could gather, loving each other and then worshiping together and creating a space to invite other people into it. It's fantastic. That's exactly what the church should be doing, without a doubt. So I think that's pretty much it. You think so? You think we pretty much nailed this for the most part?
Yeah,
like,
I got a random thought.
Sure.
Like you mentioned hip hop and being a Christian hip hop fan myself. Uh-oh.
Oh, go for
Go
it.
anywhere. I think, these kind of movements are going to be the new Christian hip hop movement. I mean, way back when you had, groups like Cross Movement, you had, the Flames, the Lecrae's that just started out.
Yeah.
I think these are the new Lecrae's, and this is the new Cross Movement in my mind. Hip hop is becoming less hip hop and more just different soulful, just like a mix of genres where it's just, you have a lot of grassroots artists just mixing everything up. Sango, case in point, right?
Oh yes.
And so
you can see he's coming from all over the place. He's got Brazil, he's got the Black American stuff mixed in. He's pulling from all the different kind of, everything in him, he's pulling into it.
Well, yeah, and it's not becoming about it. It's not becoming about a single genre. Like even on this playlist, you have all kinds of groups that don't necessarily focus on a particular genre, even though they have like roots in folk music and pop music and just gospel and choir and all that. And I think this is going to replace that because Christian hip hop has become and all the new artists just want to be so mainstream and focused on a particular way of doing music and ministry. And so I think this is going to become the new kind of musical movement that now the artists, the music lovers on the sideline are going to embrace and just run with it.
Mm.
Just like cross movement in a sort of an offshoot way brought about the Calvinist, the kind of theology into the mix. I think this is going to take it a step further, and people who became like the cage stage Calvinist and be like, take a step back. Jesus is sovereign, but I got to do more than just thump people over the Bible, over the head with the Bible. And this is going to, this is the kind of movement that's going to be more, all right, how do I invite people into my life and bear the image of God to them? And like you said, how do we show the world that we love one another, as Jesus said, So I kind of random thought, but it just popped into my head as we were talking.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. It's actually an interesting thought, and that's an interesting observation, because I definitely think like there's a lot less boom. Like it's ironic that we're sort of in a resurgence of boom bap in some way. So there's a lot of people who are sort of doubling down on the sort of boom bap backpacking stuff like that. So there's more of that sound available than it's ever been before. But hip hop as a core is no longer boom bap anymore, and it's not purely trap either, which is the sort of popular thing that's happening right now. It's actually sort of people are pulling from all kinds of places. Like Kendrick's "To Pimp a Butterfly," for example, is an example of that, where he pulled from jazz, he pulled from soul, he pulled from funk, he pulled from everything that was in his world, everything that he grew up with, everything that was around. Like he said, basically, if I can feel it and it feels good, and if I can wield it, if I can use it, I'm putting it in, and that's what he did. He took everything that he was able to wield, everyone that was sort of in the circle, until they found something that was cohesive, and then you had something that was it was music. It was that kind of thing like that. And I think that the church is slowly catching on to that as well. And you see that with like a beautiful eulogy. You see that with a propaganda or a show baraka. It's not purely in any one particular style there. They're actually pulling from all over the places, pulling all their influences in it, and they're making good music to be able to tell the story. And I guess here's my one random thought to add to that. And here's the thing to where like I appreciate my rap theologians. I appreciate Cross Movement, Shylin, all of them. No shade, no disrespect at all. You guys have helped to grow me in my own faith and to have actually pushed me into the scriptures, pushed me to the Bible. That has a place and time and a space, and it's valuable. My ancestors, my people, they originate largely out of believe in East Africa, and so for one of the things that I'm learning about African culture, because I spent the last couple of years like really sort of digging into it, that African music largely, especially for tribes and stuff like that, is not until very, very recently, it was never music to be consumed, just for the purpose of being consumed. And that African kingdoms, even really tribal kingdoms, there usually was a minister of some kind who was an advisor to the king or whomever the monarch was, and his sole role was as the royal storyteller. He had them, and he's born into the role according to what if his father was a storyteller, then his father's father was a storyteller. That's what their family always did, and their job was to flawlessly get down the songs and the oral histories of their family and of the kingdom, and to reproduce this generation over generation over generation over generation. That's what they're supposed to do. So the music is to do more than just to teach, or to correct behavior, or to try to get you to have right thinking about something. The purpose of the music was talking. It was how you communicated your narrative. It was how you told your story. It was how you drew. That's how you raised the children up into it. It was more than just trying to give a person right thinking or a right way to be able to think about something, which is what sort of rap theology and Christian hip hop really did, was to have you get you in, trying to give you a worshipful experience by having you have a right way of thinking about Jesus, which is a very sort of Calvinist kind of approach. But this takes it a step further to where the music is supposed to be in your DNA. You're not supposed to just be a passive experiencer of it. You're supposed to be an active participant in it. That when you are telling the music, you're telling the story, so that when someone from another tribe is coming up, they're hearing your story. And so
Hashtag Psalm 119.
Hashtag Psalm 119. So it's just it's that kind of thing. And I feel like for those who are getting deeper and deeper and deeper into their anticipation of Jesus returning and actually going out and practicing these things. And as you said, as this movement is getting more prevalent, we're getting more into that now, to where the music is being pulled from all different kinds of places, and you have more where people are trying to get you into a mode where you can contribute to it. You can sing, you can bring your story and your experience into it and worship the Lord from the path that he brought you on to this point. So I think it's wonderful. I think that a Bible lesson is good, but I think being able to be drawn into the worship experience and to be able to see where God has been in your story is also incredibly valuable as well. So I hope, as a person who's a child of the African diaspora, I have that. I really appreciate that, and I want more of that. I think it's good, that kind of thing. So,
last thought,
sure.
Just about the musicality. I just think it's wonderful that we're starting to mix genres, because this whole Western mindset of putting everything neatly into this little box is driving me insane. Just, you have to have a certain style of music and you have to have a label for it. Otherwise, you're like, I don't know what to call it. Why does that matter anymore? And I think this is a great project to kind of, take a step out of that. It definitely feels folky and gospel and classic, but it's a mix of everything from my perspective, and like even the different keys that they play and the melodies is just wonderful to have that mix where you can't really put a label on it. I mean, it's God worshiping music, but it doesn't fit a genre mold that we're used to. And I think it's great. I think it's a step in the right direction, just to make great music where you're not worried about, is this going to be a rock song or is this going to be a hip hop song? Is it just going to be a song that's beautiful?
Amen. Amen to that. Well, folks out there, please check this stuff out. Check this album out. It's called the Porter's Gate Worship Project. It's Volume 1, Work Songs. It's available on Spotify. I think it's on Apple Music as well. So like it's pretty much available, on the streaming services for anyone who subscribes to streaming services. But if you want to buy and download old school, I'm old school. I still buy and download whole albums, not singles, but whole albums. It can be found on Bandcamp. It can be found on iTunes. It can be found on Amazon. Check down there in the description. I have links to where you can purchase the album. It's like $9.99 on Amazon. It's like $8.99 on the other services. It's like $9.99 or something like that. Not a whole lot of money. Just give those guys some support so that they can continue to do more music like this, so that they can get more people from other traditions as well. Shoot, I want to hear some Eastern Orthodox Christians in here. I want to hear some folks from some Coptic Orthodox up in here. I want to see them mix it up. I want to hear stuff from all over here. I want to hear some Israeli Christians up in this mode, man. I want to hear it mixed up. So yeah, definitely support them so that they can continue to make this happen. We need more Jesus in the world. And then definitely check out Empty Wonderland Collective. We are on all the socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Tumblr. Check us out down here in the description. Down in the description, you can see all of our socials there. Click it, click it, click it, click it. Definitely feel free to subscribe. You should subscribe if you like our podcast, if you like the stuff that we have to say, if you don't like it, if you have bad feedback, whatever, we take it. We had people who called us apostate because we did a Last Jedi review, and they saw somehow inferred that we're staunch followers of Timothy Keller. No shade on Keller. Keller has helped me in my faith, and I've taken what was truth from what the man had to say, and I've moved on. But we've gotten some shade in the inbox over stuff like that. If that's how you feel, bring it on in. Tell us about it. We can have a conversation. We have a conversation about it. Not shy about it. Every Wednesday, new episodes in Q1. New episodes every Wednesday at noon. They will drop. So definitely feel free to subscribe and hit the little bell so you can be notified when new episodes are happening. And if you already hit the bell, then that means you were notified for this live stream that's happening right now. So thank you all for joining us, for listening to us rant and rave about this stuff. We appreciate you. Love you. God bless.